I've been sat here like a balloon ready to burst, but Rocksteady and WB have lifted the NDA on the closed alpha test for Suicide Squad that they held a couple of months ago. So, finally I can talk about this game, my impressions and the feedback I have for this game. Obviously I could not capture any gameplay, so the background is just going to be rolling off the trailers. So I'm going to keep it fairly light on spoilers or any kind of story sections, because even in this really small portion there was just a lot of terrific Arkham shenanigans going on. The thing that I've maintained from the beginning since seeing this game until now is that this game has Rocksteady's fingerprints all over it, from the writing, the art direction, the character models, and the understanding of a compelling and rich DC universe. Like, we've only had the Arkham games, right? So ever since those titles, you've kind of just imagined and dreamt what a Rocksteady Studios Justice League might look like, how they might be. The real finalized product is just everything and more. Exploring the Hall of Justice just feels like the start of Arkham Asylum, where you just immediately get a sense of who this Batman is, and the same applies to the Justice League here. I got to do quite a few missions. I played everything that the test had to offer. I got to do, shall we say, a small encounter with the Batman, which just, like, all the feels, man. It had all the feels. It was really something special. As a huge fan of the Arkham series, between the actual gameplay that panned out in that scene, to just hearing Kevin Conroy again, the Arkham callbacks, it felt like a real love letter to the Arkham games. Not to mention, like, this place, again, without spoiling too much, it recapped the biggest events of Rocksteady's trilogy, and it set the scene for what Bruce has been doing since Night. Like I say though, spending some time with the Flash, Green Lantern, and probably my favourite so far, Wonder Woman, the depiction of her in this game it's incredible, it really is. They really managed to capture this feeling of these larger than life heroes. Everything story wise for me, it's really clicked so far. Like, and that was barely scratching the surface. I think the narrative is going to be something really cool here. I expect a lot of twists and turns, and whilst some of the bigger moments in this bit I did get to play, like the Flash fighting Green Lantern, Wonder Woman protecting the Hall of Justice, it was also some of the smaller character moments between the squad that the dialogue just hit just as much. There's just so many cool little things. I mentioned the Batman kind of tribute in the Arkham games, right, and this encounter, but let me tell you how mortified I was when I was just out in the open world and I just finished this little public encounter and Batman's just there on a rooftop watching me, like watching what we're doing. So I go to shoot him and he disappears, and I'm there, I'm shouting at him, I'm like, did you see that? The roles have truly been reversed. It's finally me going, it's the Bat, it's the Bat! And yeah, it's incredible, it's a lot of fun. The squad banter and callouts, it's just a creative, well-delivered DC sandbox. So let's get into the squad, shall we? The tutorial, I'll be honest, it felt a little bit messy. I struggled to really get to grips with the game straight away. I blame that partially down to the tutorial itself, but also me on mouse and keyboard. I think this game is one of those shooters that is 100% based around a controller. So I played as all 4 squad members. By the end, I mainly gravitated towards Harley and Deadshot. First of all, we've got to address the elephant in the room that's been doing the rounds, the UI. It really is not as bad as them screenshots would have you believe. When the tutorial section was happening, and when you first get into some abilities, I agree, it's very, very busy, but outside of that, I think it's manageable, and I never had a problem with it. The complaint that I do have is the combat itself. It's really stimulating, which sometimes is great, and sometimes it's not so great. So like, picture the Arkham games, right? You've got the blue counter, the yellow counter, and then red for when people start shooting at you. The issue I have is that in this game, there's a lot more going on, because there's more particle effects, more explosions, more enemies on screen, status effects, that I might miss an opportunity to counter shot an enemy or see the direction where an attack is coming from. The counter shot itself, I think, is really inventive and innovative, especially in this particular genre. And even the small amount that I played, the enemy variety felt fairly decent, with different enemies being taken out in different ways and different kind of chances to counter them. I certainly didn't feel like it was just shoot the big purple spot. So with that gripe out of the way, everything else gameplay wise felt pretty min. It really did. Like, counter shots are cool, but the way they've created like a combo system in a shooter is so Rocksteady and also so cool. The way you'll gain buffs and perks from it, I believe they're called talents in this, just adds to the flow. Like, obviously people love the free flow combat of the Arkham games, but they've done a really good job of kind of applying that to a shooter. Like, when you really get in the flow on this, You feel unstoppable in the same way you did in the Arkham games. Also, those like skill trees that let you spec into them talents, it allows you to spec into your playstyle. This is a looter shooter, but they're not ignoring the melee capabilities like some other looter shooters would. You can get really down and dirty with improving your melee capabilities and buffs if you want to. The combat, despite at times being a lot, is really fluid and clean. And speaking of fluid, the traversal and the traversal animations, like each character feels vastly different from the next. Boomerang's, I'd argue, probably has the most fun traversal in the way that he can manipulate and use the Speed Force and do a Speed Force sprint after he throws the boomerang. It just feels slick. It's also very Arkham-like in that it's easy to pick up, but hard to master. I had this problem for Deadshot, for example, before I really put the time in to learn how to get the most out of his rockets. So you're essentially trying to chain together your traversal by doing slides and dashes. It's very fluid, but the main thing is that it's fun. Metropolis itself just lends to that traversal in a really great way. It's set up in a way that you can chain those moves together. So it's a looter shooter. I still have my questions for sure because I'm playing very, very early on. I have my questions around those notorious weapons, the perk pools, the endgame shenanigans. I got 1 to 2 legendaries, but I can't really speak too much on the loot because I didn't really get much of a taste of it. One thing I did like about the loot was the diversity. So King Shark, for example, is not a sniper boy, only Deadshot has that. Alongside traversal, it allows each character to feel really distinct. The gunplay felt good and quite satisfying. I enjoyed the feedback that it gave. I like too as well that Boomerang and Harley use SMGs, right? And any SMG that I pick up is shared loot. So if I picked it up as Boomerang, it might actually complement my Harley build a little bit better. So therefore I could let Harley use that. Harley rotating between a handgun and SMG was probably my favourite in terms of like loadouts for each person. Especially the way you can like chain that with like grenades and suicide strikes and melee abilities. I thought it's pretty cool. I dip between both solo and co-op, and obviously co-op's where the fun's at, man. You kind of just naturally team up on enemies in like a really fun and cinematic way. It just adds to the spectacle. Sometimes, you know, I lost my combo because another player had taken someone out before I could get to them, but the excitement of playing with others is very fulfilling. Even playing solo though, like AI were very competent, and it wasn't like sometimes where, you know, your enemies just forget about AI teammates to just target you. There's still a lot going on around you, so you still feel like the main character, but all the enemy's efforts are not focused on you. What I also appreciate was the fact that you can just switch between the characters on the fly. I thought that was really, really neat. The 4 characters themselves, I mean, I really enjoyed them all. It's probably like asking a parent to pick their favourite child. I think I'll be rotating between them between my initial playthrough throughout Metropolis. And, well, speaking of Metropolis, I mean, right now I'm doing a playthrough of Arkham Knight with some RTGI mods on. And I'm like, how is this a 2015 game? It was way ahead of its time. Suicide Squad, I'm like, they've done it again. Metropolis is absolutely stunning. It really, really is. It's going to be just like Arkham Knight, where when the next generation of consoles come around, we're like, yep, this holds up just as good. The day and night cycle, this realised DC world. Like I said at the top of the video, you kind of always just imagined how Metropolis would look in the Arkhamverse, how the Hall of Justice would be, and it's every bit as good as you would have imagined it. It really is. The way Brainiac's ship just like floats in the distance, and the character models are just such incredible detail. The Arkhamverse is easily the best DC universe that we've had since the times of Justice League Unlimited. Exploring the Hall of Justice, it felt like I'd known these iterations of these characters forever, and not that it was my introduction to this universe's version of them. It looks like we're going to get dynamic weather, and it's really coming together as a solid technical package too. The game seemed to scale well with graphic settings, and it ran superbly, and what I mean by that is that I barely ever had any frame drops, and I encountered 1 bug in my entire playthrough. That is insane for an alpha. The kind of feedback and pain points that I do have, like I say, there was an overstimulation in terms of effects, and even like quality of life things can change this. Like if counter shots had a bigger audio cue, or, you know, it's not that like the major systems were broken in that aspect. And for as beautiful and incredible as Metropolis is, it does feel pretty barren at times. Like, yes, there's been an invasion and there's lore reasons for it, but I'm hoping that in the main game and the post game, there's a little bit more going on between like when you're bouncing between the main missions. Oh, and Riddler's back, by the way. So if you're still like a recovering Riddler trophy addict, filled with PTSD over those Riddler trophies, get ready to become even more insane. Here's the thing. I really do think that if you accept that this is not the Justice League game or Superman game that you wanted, and just allow this game to take you through its narrative, explore its characters, traverse its world, and have fun in this metropolis, I think this game has the potential to be pretty special for a DC fan. I don't think it's going to be for everyone. I'm not going to pretend it is. It's definitely for me though. I still have my questions for the endgame and everything post-launch, but I can't help but feel excited, you know? The devs have clearly poured everything into it, between just the sheer talent that Rocksteady have, but also their love to both the wider DC universe, but also everything they've crafted up until now in the Arkhamverse. I'm really excited to get my hands on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League when it launches later this month. So, they're my impressions on Suicide Squad. Did you get to check out the alpha? If you did, let me know what you thought of it down below. If you're excited about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and you want to stay up to date on everything about the game, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button, as I'm going to be covering everything on the game from now, launch, and everything beyond that. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps out my channel and I appreciate it a lot more than you know. Have a terrific day and I'll catch you in the next one.